Hello! We've come to Spaceport Cornwall to find out what it's all about and meet Melissa Thorpe, who's going to show us what's going on. Exciting things. Let's go. Hey Mel!
Hey Nathan!
Thank you so much for inviting Chaos TV over to Cornwall Spaceport.
Oh no, thank you so much for coming to see us.
We're going to have a bit of a nose around today and take the viewers on a bit of a journey and hear more about what's happening and all the exciting things that are coming up. Where are you going to go first?
We're going to head up to our satellite integration facility, which I'm really excited to show you.
Awesome. This way?
That way.
Let's go.
Okay.
So Mel, we've come to the real heart of the Spaceport Cornwall. Tell us about this amazing new facility that you've just kind of ready to launch and open up.
Yeah, so it's brand new. It's our satellite integration facility, and this is where the magic will happen. It's where the satellites are going to be put into the rocket, ready to go to space. And we're just about to do the ribbon cutting on it next week, so it's fresh, really fresh.
I mean, we were talking a little bit earlier, just off air, about from day one, how it was a sheep farm originally. You've been there kind of from day one, so it must be really exciting for you to see how far it's come. And also working really collaboratively with, I guess, your neighbours here as well. We've got the Newquay Airport, which, of course, is going from strength to strength, and using, I guess, local organisations as well to help develop the site.
Oh, 100%. For us, it's the number one priority is we're working with businesses that are already here in Cornwall, and we're introducing them to Virgin Orbit as well, and they're using all local suppliers for the things that they need. So that's what this is all about. The launch gets all the excitement, but really it's working with the supply chain and ancillary kind of businesses here in Cornwall, and making the opportunity spread throughout the county.
And you mentioned Virgin Orbit there. Tell us a little bit about the operations of that's coming up, because I guess really that's the focus at the moment. You're building these facilities to accommodate their priorities and of course, the big launch that everyone's looking forward to. Specifically, what does that kind of involve?
So Virgin Orbit are our first launch partner. They're not going to be our only ones, but they're ones that we're going to be launching with first. And they're a really exciting company because they are completely disrupting the way that launch is happening. They're bringing a launch pad to the customer base. Right now, satellites are built and they go to the launch pad. So they're actually a mobile launch platform. So they're going to go around the world and launch satellites to space from their home countries, basically. So it's a different way. We call it kind of a red carpet service to space. And we're really proud of working with the Virgin Group on that, because it means that the UK can access space, again, within their own control, and that from an environmental perspective as well as from a kind of geopolitical perspective is crucially important. So for them to kind of be that first guinea pig for us here in the UK to launch, and be able to use an existing technology that they already have, an existing airfield that we already have here, it means that we're allowed to bring those two things together and launch for actually not a lot of money in the space world anyway.
Yeah, because space is an expensive game. It's really exciting to have this right here on our doorstep in Cornwall and to kind of almost reshape it and start from fresh, isn't it? It's this new way of doing it. So we're going to have a look inside.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, come on then, let's go and have a look.
Let's do it.
Let's pretend to be a satellite. So we've just come into what we like to call the airlock, which fills my inner nerd with excitement. What happens in here?
So this is where the humans come out of the gown room, and the satellite will be waiting in here for them to go through together into the clean room. So this is kind of the last place where they can make sure everything's squeaky clean, the technology and the human, before they go into the very sterile environment that's through that door there.
So a real last opportunity to fine tune before we go on in there.
Yeah, and the piece de resistance awaiting in the next room is our clean room, which has a huge crane in it, which will basically hoist the fairing of the rocket vertically, which is really interesting for us because a lot of times they do it horizontally, but it makes it a bit more difficult. So we've actually put in this massive crane so we can put it vertically. And it'll almost be open like a clamshell. where the satellites can then be integrated into it. And the satellites will come kind of one at a time from wherever in the world they are to be put into that with their teams. And that rocket then will be full of payload, as we call it in the industry, so full of the satellites before it gets integrated back into the rest of the rocket.
And how do you know how big to scale things? Is there kind of a standard size for a rocket? Because we were saying it has to be vertical. That's a huge space you're going to need.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely built it around the requirements of Virgin, but we've also tried to future-proof as best we could for other systems that we're looking at in the future as well. And who knows what's going to happen, but we know there's a few technologies that we could definitely launch from here. So we've kept them in mind the whole time through the design of this building.
With the actual space in mind, people working inside are going to spend quite long periods of time in there. I guess it's quite difficult for them to pop in and out with all the kind of procedures. You've really been mindful of the space, haven't you, and the environment that your team are going to be working in.
Yeah, I mean, our purpose at Spaceport Cornwall is good space, and that's good space up in space, but also for the people on the ground, whether that's our communities, but the people working here on site. And I want them to be comfortable and, you know, very proud of working here. So for us, it's things like we're going to be putting up lots of amazing graphics, and we've chosen a floor color that hopefully will be very different from the normal kind of sterile environment of a lot of different grays that seem to happen in the space industry. So when you see a lot of the Spaceport Cornwall brand out and about, I hope people think it's different, but it represents our purpose, which is trying to do things differently, but for good.
Great. Well, come on, let's go and have a look. I can't wait to see it.
Come on in.
Okay, so the next phase is what we're calling the workshop. So I guess a lot of work going to happen in terms of getting it, I guess, finally, ultimately ready for launch.
Yeah, this is where the rocket will live, and the engineers will be working on it throughout the next few months, really. So this is where it will be all put together, and then through those big doors at the end there, out onto the apron and off to space. So this is kind of the last piece of the puzzle, is this bit here. So it's going to be an exciting part as well. Not as slick looking as the other end, but actually I like what happens in here the most.
I love when I think about workshop, when I think back home to my garage where my car is and things, just massively upscaling that to having a rocket here it blows my mind.
Yeah, and there'll be workbenches. You see some of the kind of kit that we've brought in because of the size of the rocket. It's 70 feet, it's huge, and until you see it in person, I think it's hard to imagine what that looks like, but I think, you know, once people start to see it in here, it's pretty impressive to say the least.
And we said before, it's really a facility for the whole space industry to access and use. If we think about it like essentially a garage, isn't it? You know, you take your car to the garage to be prepared for launch in space. What type of, I guess, job opportunities are here for people? Will teams come and use your facilities, or will you have your own kind of team to help support individual rockets?
Yeah, a little bit of both, actually. So we've been talking a lot about Virgin Orbit because that's our first one. But when Virgin Orbit are not here, we already have other companies that will be coming and using either this part or the front bit or the clean room. And that's what I'm really excited about for Cornwall, is what else happens here when Virgin are not here. So we have partners at the University of Exeter, for instance, that will be doing some technology innovations here on regards to how can we launch more sustainably? How can we build satellites in a more sustainable way? So that can all happen in this facility.
Is the UK kind of positioned in the right place, I suppose, for space activities and operations? Because all we've ever really seen is California, and then there's some bits that happen in Kazakhstan, I think. And we're beginning to see, obviously, China do their own thing as well. But I feel like we're kind of middle ground. Is that to our benefit?
Yeah, I think traditionally, from a spaceport perspective, a lot of them happen around the equator. There's a few polar, and I think the UK has that access to polar. The beauty of the Virgin launch system is it can go different ways because it's an airplane. So the flexibility in that. But I think it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, in that there's a marketplace here. And marketplaces drive that. And so to have the satellites here, not just in the UK, but Europe, it's using that access to space in a way that's kind of meeting the demands of the industry and trying to future-proof it as well. So that's what we're really keen to do, is trying to look at what the needs are now, but also in the future.
Cornwall's very good at collaborating, because I think we're such a small county sometimes compared to the rest of the country that it's a collaborative effort. We spoke about kind of working with community partners and things. Are there any gaps or areas you feel like you'd like to do more, or how maybe other organisations could come and partner with you?
100%. I am, driving as best as I can the use of space for good, but also for us to access space in more sustainable ways, more ethical ways. I want Cornwall to be the home of that globally. I want to challenge other spaceports, other space operators to think about what we're doing to our planet to get these things to space. So the technology we talked about earlier, doing incredible stuff for our planet, cool, but the way it's getting to space is impactful at the minute. And it's also done from places, as we've seen more recently with Russia, from places that maybe don't have the same kind of ethical beliefs that we might. So I think there's a huge opportunity for Cornwall to lead the way, and that brings in, thinkers from academia, from humanities, from social sciences, as well as obviously the harder end of the sciences. I need people from cultural backgrounds with artistic kind of brains to help us solve some of these problems. So that's where I think Cornwall has this huge opportunity, because there is a gap at the moment in the space industry around that, and I think we can do so much better. We have to do so much better.
Yeah, it's all about collaboration, which is it's why Chaos wanted to come today, to kind of have a look round, meet the team behind what's going on, because you hear a lot about this great stuff's happening, but it's sometimes really hard to connect to see what that means to the people of Cornwall, or young people who, I'd never be able to be a rocket engineer. It's not just about that's the one job on the table. It's a huge part of what's happening. So where are we going next?
So we're going to head through some really big doors, and we're going to go out onto where the apron is, where Cosmic Girl will be parked up, and we'll use a bit of creativity to think of a 747 out there, where the rocket will be mated onto 747. So we'll go outside and check that out.
Cool, let's go.
Cool.
Okay, so we're outside again now. We've come all the way through our facility, and I guess this is kind of the journey up to the runway. The apron?
So that's the apron, Echo Apron behind us.
Why an apron? I think like kitchen. In the kitchen?
That's just what they're called on airfields. Is the aprons. That's usually if you're landing from your flight from a holiday, and you go down, you come off the runway, you go onto a taxiway, and then you park up on an apron. And that's where people can kind of walk around a little bit more freely. You're away from the main runway. Cosmic Girl, the carrier aircraft will be parked up just behind us here. So going back to where we started with the journey of the satellite's been integrated in the clean room. It's come out on the rocket. The rocket then will be wheeled out here, go through these gates, onto Echo Apron, where it will then be mated onto Cosmic Girl, the aircraft. So it's basically a pylon that attaches the rocket to the aircraft. So all that will happen out behind us here on the apron before Cosmic Girl can go out on the runway and go to space.
And for maybe people who maybe not heard of Cosmic Girl before, this is the unique to Virgin's model of launching rockets. Essentially a really high-spec 747, so like you might go on your holidays to, but adapted to take the rocket for horizontal launch.
Got it, yeah, exactly. And Cosmic Girl was the name of the aircraft when she used to fly for Virgin Atlantic.
Oh.
And she was based out of London. So people actually have flown on her for holidays.
So truly repurposed airplane.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I like to say upcycled. We've upcycled an airport to be a spaceport, and they've upcycled an airplane to be a launcher. And it's completely stripped out inside to lose the weight. 747s were actually designed to carry an extra engine, and they've just converted that into this pylon. The technology is worth about $1 billion. That Virgin have invested themselves into the launcher system, and it's just to launch satellites. Obviously, Richard Branson has Virgin Galactic, which is about human spaceflight, but we're just working with Virgin Orbit.
And we've seen the kind of I guess test flights before that have been taking place over in America. So I guess the eagle-eyed people amongst us will be familiar with that journey and what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I think we've got 6 launches now out of Mojave, 5 commercial launches. So they've delivered commercial payloads to space for NASA and lots of different other partners. We'll be their first launch location outside of the US. So we're their first international launch, which we're really proud of, obviously.
And I guess for your neighbours, because it's quite a unique place where we've got regular flights happening from Newquay Airport and sharing the space, there's going to be this real bizarre moment for people who may be flying into Manchester or flying over to Heathrow and Gatwick, and then the flight before them or after them is going to be this amazing rocket payload.
Yeah, and you don't have to build a launch pad in the middle of a jungle anymore. You can do it at an existing site, and for an environmental kind of reason, that's really important. But also it makes it more sustainable financially, because we're not just building a rocket pad and that's all we're doing. We're integrating this with lots of other business activity, and you might have seen, Bristow Search and Rescue landing a second ago, and we have the daily flights up to London and lots of other stuff happening on this airfield. So it becomes, it spreads the kind of risk and value across the site, and that model I think is going to be really unique going forward. And I go out, luckily enough to go around the world and talk about that to other potential sites, like you can do this differently.
And in terms of conditions on the day, I mean, obviously we want beautiful blue sky, but it's going to be a night launch, the first one. I know some of the details are still up in the air. We're still kind of fine-tuning stuff. There's only a certain amount you can kind of say about it. But tell us a little bit about kind of what the optimal plan is for launch day.
So it is going to be at night. That's not just because we're trying to make things more difficult for ourselves. It's a technical reason of getting the satellites where they need to be. It is rocket science.
Literally.
It is literally rocket science. So on the day, we're looking at lots of activity early evening with a launch quite late at night. And definitely, we're a little bit more flexible with weather windows compared to a normal vertical lift rocket. Because it's an airplane, we can kind of get above the weather. That being said, of course, if it's chucking it down with rain and super windy, it will unlikely happen. But that's the launch industry.
And I guess we've done our journey through as the satellite, as the rocket, the payload. Where's the kind of ops happening? The control room. We see the mission control.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing things have progressed quite a lot, so you don't have to have a huge kind of operation going for we're not thinking hundreds of computers and 100 members of the team.
A little bit.
Okay.
We do have operations that will be happening in areas. We can't have them right on site because of for safety reasons.
Sure.
So a lot of that, as you see in movies with Mission Control in Houston, will be operating from the US as well as here in Cornwall. Goonhilly are supporting us with some of that as well. So there'll be a few different locations where we have the mission ops happening. And on the day, obviously, different areas around the airfields will have different activities happening as well. So it'll be pretty spread throughout Cornwall as well as international as well, to make sure that it's seamless.
Just like the E advert with Kevin Bacon. You've seen this where they make it look so easy, where they just go into someone's home and land a plane, just like that.
Yeah, pretty much, actually, yeah.
But I guess Cornwall's infrastructure plays a big part in that as well. We've got Superpath Fibre. You said about Goonhilly supporting the thing as well. It's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, and we're trying to use as many local companies as possible, as I said, and using what's here. When I say upcycle, it's not just a joke. We are actually trying to use existing capabilities and assets that Cornwall already has, because we are delivering a launch for under £20 million. 20 million is a lot of money. I know there's housing crises out there, and there's lots of other things that £20 million can go towards, but what we're getting out of this is something that's going to create jobs, inspire the future, challenge the global industry to do it better, deliver amazing technology, and each one of our satellites is doing something incredible for humanity. But the fundamental thing at the end of the day, this is all going to be revenue generating for Cornwall. So we will start to see revenues coming in from launch, so that we can get that investment back into Cornwall Council, and they can continue to go out and provide So that, is really important for us, that this is a commercial viable operation for Cornwall.
So Mel, we've done our tour. We've come into the office, Mission Control. Am I allowed to call it that?
Headquarters.
Headquarters, that'll do.
HQ.
Yeah, HQ. I guess what goes on here. This is, I guess, the heart of the business, I suppose, because we've said it very much is a business. It's about growing the use of the spaceport and investing time. What happens in here day to day with the team?
Yeah, this is just the home of the team, really. So it's where we sit down, we have lots of meetings, calls, but we have a lot of fun in here as well because we have to. It's a very serious project. There's a lot of expectation and pressure, but we're a family. We're a really tight-knit group, and for us, this is where we have to share in some laughter as well. So it's definitely our home away from home.
And I guess for me, it'd be really helpful to understand the journey of Spaceport Cornwall, because as a member of the public kind of looking in, it just popped up one day. But that obviously didn't happen, did it? It's quite a journey, which you've been at from the beginning?
Yeah, I've been here since it started. I was actually working on the site anyways. I was kind of brought in as a consultant, working with my predecessor actually, to look at how we could develop the site beyond just the passenger services. So we're looking at other technologies. Spaceport kind of landed on our desk as a potential site, and we were like, interesting, okay. And it's been a roller coaster ride ever since. So that was 8 years ago, just over 8 years ago. So lots of blood, sweat and tears since then to get to where we are, what you've just seen. So it's been quite an epic journey. One day I'll write a movie or something about it.
It's a good moneymaker. Yeah. And I know we spoke about kind of working with partners and where we want to go with the spaceport. But why do you think Newquay was the home of the spaceport?
I think early days it was because kind of technical reasons, long runway, as I think you talked about earlier, access over the sea. There was not a lot of residential build-up around it, so it was kind of a tick box initially. But I think as we kind of went on, it became more important about the communities of Cornwall, what Cornwall stands for and how we approach space, and that got noticed quite quickly. Got noticed by Virgin. It fit really well with their brand and their ethos as Virgin Orbit and as a company. And then it's been noticed by the space industry in general because we are approaching things very differently, and it's all in the spirit of Cornwall. So I think it started quite technical, but it's turned into something much bigger than that.
And I guess it's really hard to answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What does a typical day look like for you? I feel like you've got hands in all different places, but you're not just here, you're all around the country, all around the world sometimes.
Yeah, every day is totally different. Some days it's back-to-back calls on Teams or, the usual. Or some days it's on site all day, up meeting with the developers or future customers. I'm in schools quite a bit. I'm with the media a lot. I'm doing everything. Yesterday we were building IKEA furniture. So while we were having meetings, we get our hands stuck in everything as a team. We're very small, so we kind of have to. But I love it. I love that it's different every day. Plus, obviously, fitting in day-to-day life of school runs and puppy care. So every day is very different.
And you're a real advocate for space and exploration. I think you said earlier was one of the things you really, really love. Where did that come from? Is it something you've been interested in as a child, or is it something, as you said, the spaceport idea got dropped on your lap?
Yeah, I'm not a space geek, and I think it always surprises people. I think my passion is about translating from the space geeks to the average person on the street that might not think space is for them or they have any kind of reason to care about space. I try and kind of decipher what space can do and why it's important and how it does impact our lives, but also how the general population have a right to say what happens into space. And that as we become a kind of multi-planetary species, that the general public need to be involved in those conversations, and it shouldn't be just left to big corporations or government agencies anymore. It's all of our future. So for me, that's my interest in it. As a young child, I grew up in a very rural part of Canada where there was the Northern Lights and big skies, and I massively had an interest in the stars and what was out there, as I think most young kids do. I was told by a teacher when I said I wanted to go into astronomy that there was no hope in that career where I lived. That to me stuck, and I'm like, yes, there is, and I need all the kids in Cornwall to know that there is and to show them how to do it. So I guess there's some seeds set early days, and here I am now running a spaceport. So that teacher was wrong. But yeah, so I think, but for me, it's really about space and how we can use it for Earth.
I love that you've taken that, hung on to that comment and made that change yourself. You know, you've pushed for that to go, well, actually, here we are. I'm working in this industry. I'm opening it up for more and more people to get involved in.
Yeah, and making sure that we don't make those mistakes in our schools. And the teachers that we work with are incredible, and they would never say anything like that now. So for us and my team, it's about supporting the teachers down here to show them, to get that excitement going, but also then the pathways into the industry. It's not about getting them excited and then going, good luck, see you later. It's, here's a pathway into becoming a rocket engineer or an astrophysicist or marketing in space, or, as we said earlier, you know, any of the amazing opportunities, and working with the colleges and universities here to ensure that those pathways are really apparent.
Would you tell us a little bit about your background and maybe some highlights of your career that you kind of cling on to, things that have been really interesting or notable? Because it sounds like you've got a real rich background, and to find yourself here today really pushing Newquay forward.
Yeah, so I'm not Cornish, as you can tell. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, so I grew up in a very remote part of British Columbia, Canada, and like most small town kids, I think probably lots of people can you know, understand this from small communities in Cornwall. I was desperate to get out. I was desperate to see the world, and I wanted to be a pilot. My dad flew and fought forest fires using water bombers, and I was really keen to do that, but I didn't have good eyesight. So I was like, okay, what do I do with staying in aviation? I loved airplanes. And so I ended up being an economist, but focusing and specializing on aerospace marketplaces around the world. So how does, you know, what's the difference between Airbus and Toulouse and the cluster growth there compared to Boeing in Seattle? What works, what doesn't work? How do they engage with the local community and really drive kind of growth forward in those areas? So that was my kind of focus. I moved to London. My dream school was the London School of Economics, which I did my master's at there, and even more niche. I'm one of those people where you're like, what did you study? And I go, really niche. And I'm randomly working in exactly what I studied, which I think is pretty rare. But
a lot of people can't, you know, say that they can do that, isn't it? That's quite an achievement.
So I love it because it's what I was really interested in, and I'm so lucky, you know, to go all over the country and the world and talk about it, and have experienced such incredible things. You know, I've been on board Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier. I've been to the Middle East working with, you know, the UAE when they started up their space agency and getting more girls and women in, you know, in the Middle East to get into STEM. I've had some really incredible experiences just here in Cornwall, and things like Goonhilly's Apollo celebration festival was a big moment. And, you know, there's lots of things, but every single day coming in, seeing my team is the highlight by far. It's hilarious. There should be a reality TV show in this room.
I'm sure there's some stories that we can't share, but I'd love to. And I guess, what would your advice be for anyone who is just starting out in their career or really beginning to think about how they can access into the aerospace industry without having to travel? I mean, travel is really exciting, and some people, you know, really love it. But for a lot of people, Spaceport Cornwall is really opening up the reality of being able to work in an industry you want to, without having to go to America or off to Central Europe.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope that I'm a good example of, I'm not a space background, but here I am in the space industry. And that's the beauty of the space industry these days. We call it new space. So it's changed from kind of the old guard. And we need people from all walks of life and different ways of thinking, because that's the only way we're going to start to solve some of these global challenges. So opening up opportunities like that on their doorstep here in Cornwall, you know, getting them excited about launch, which is really easy to do. Yes, if you're going to go away and go to university, fantastic, but you can come back and have a job here, doing some, you know, the technologies that we've talked about. And for me, that just is, that's a real opportunity with this project.
And I guess final question is where when you retire, you get to retirement age, what's the legacy you want to leave behind here at Spaceport?
I guess for me, it's that purpose of good space. I want people to come to the site, have lots of different occupiers of the facilities that we've just seen doing really cool stuff for our planet, and to feel like this is considerate and responsible of how we're approaching space. I think that for me would be a win, and personally a legacy for me to have, little kids in reception knowing that they can come and have a career up the road from where they live in Cornwall. And I think for me that would be everything, really.
Mel, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for letting us come and have a good old nose around at the Spaceport today. I feel like we've made friends with you guys, so it'd be great to kind of come back in the future and see how things are developing.
Well, come and see launch, definitely. Yeah. And yeah, obviously, thank you so much for coming and getting involved and believing in us as well, and me especially, so thank you.
Thank you. So there we go, that was our visit to Spaceport Cornwall with the amazing Melissa Thorpe. She's lovely, isn't she? It's been a real pleasure to have a walk around and real showcase what's happening here. What we really want to do is give you guys an insider view, if you like, of what's happening, because we see a lot in the press, but it's not really that detailed, and it's great to meet the people behind it and the aspirations they have for the Spaceport. So big thank you to the Spaceport team, and yeah, we will come back for the launch. We're going to bring you something very exciting for launch day, so stay tuned to Chaos TV. And of course, if you want any more information on the Spaceport, head over to their website, spaceportcornwall.com. Time for a cup of tea.